45 minutes after the new series continues with Michelle.
Every year, around £52 billion is stolen from the UK's public purse. But up and down Britain, an army of fraud fighters is battling to win it back.
This money should really have been used to pay for the essential services that all of us use every day.
Benefit fraud does not pay.
What it effectively is people stealing money from you and I.
This is a huge amount of money and it's disgraceful.
From paying for the police and our health service, filling in potholes and emptying our dustbins, to making sure everyone has a roof over their head.
£2 million means an awful lot, but it was just the tip of the iceberg.
So it's absolutely disgusting what they do.
The investigators' mission has never been more vital.
Blatant lies just to claim benefits.
And the only thing I could put it down to is greed.
This is not a victimless crime. This is coming out of the public purse.
We will not let it go. We're like dogs with bones.
You will be found, you will be investigated, and ultimately you will be prosecuted.
The Fraud Squad are on the case. Today, a brazen benefits cheat who isn't afraid of making a song and dance when it comes to making a claim.
This was a man who had the audacity to engage in a very public performance, and for a gentleman who is said to have the mobility difficulties claimed, you would think that there would be some evidence of that.
A fraudster who's cheating the public purse out of huge sums of cash with bogus child benefit claims.
A document expert from the Home Office examined each of the birth certificates and was able to confirm to us that the details had been forged.
And an unscrupulous sportsman living the high life, all paid for with other people's money.
He was living in a £1 million house in a rural area, driving nice cars, going to nice restaurants, things like that.
Every year in the UK, the government pays out around £40 billion in disability benefits. For those entitled to financial support, it's a vital lifeline. But when it comes to those who aren't, the Fraud Squad leaps into action. Neil Gunn is the head of the Crown Prosecution Service's Northern Fraud Unit. It's his job to bring fraudsters to justice, and this is the story of one of the most outrageous frauds he's ever seen.
My view is that this gentleman showed no regard for who was ultimately to pay for his additional fraudulent benefits. Clearly, this is money that this gentleman didn't deserve. He wasn't entitled to it, but he claimed it nonetheless.
The case is sparked by an anonymous tip-off to the investigators at the Department for Work and Pensions.
They were told that this particular gentleman was working whilst claiming benefits. He claimed that he had a number of conditions. He said that he couldn't walk any great distance without pain. He also claimed that he needed to use a stick, and also indicated that he did not like to mix with people.
The allegations being made against the claimant are serious, but by studying his medical records, investigators quickly established that he has a genuine disability.
This gentleman does have a condition known as spinal muscular atrophy, and that condition was acknowledged and the level of benefit was assessed with that in mind.
His illness makes him eligible for financial assistance, but following the tip-off, Neil suspects he might not be entitled to the full £416 he's getting every month. To find out if he's right and the man really is on the take, investigators set up an undercover filming operation.
They're looking for any clues to suggest he's more able-bodied than he's making out. And what they discover blows the man's claims out of the water.
So, over a period of roughly a month, the surveillance team watched this gentleman. They saw him shopping in various supermarkets, carrying bags, lifting, unloading heavy trolleys, walking around for approximately 40 minutes unaided. And on no occasion was he seemingly showing any difficulties in terms of his mobility, which totally went against what he was saying in those claim forms. The reality of this gentleman's mobility, they showed that he was able to move. His mobility was not restricted to the extent that he claimed. So the investigators felt that they were onto something and it merited further investigations.
Later, Neil's team make an online discovery that takes the case to a whole new level.
The findings were shocking.
And the suspect is caught in the act, quite literally.
The investigators watching these performances were aghast at seeing the routine and what it entailed.
Stealing money from your employer is clearly wrong. Fiddling the system to line your own pockets with public money is just as bad, if not worse. But it takes a really heartless kind of criminal to steal money from a charity. Our next fraudster is guilty of all three, taking cash he wasn't entitled to fund a life of luxury.
He was living in a £1 million house in a rural area, driving nice cars, going to nice restaurants, things like that, which seemed to outweigh what he was earning or what he was declaring to the HMRC.
This is the story of a professional golfer who lives and works in an affluent area of Hampshire. But when it comes to his finances, there are suspicions that this is a sportsman who isn't playing by the rules. Detective Constable Mike Dumbleton is called in to investigate.
I've been with the police for 16 years and now I'm working in the economic crime investigation team, which primarily works with fraud and money laundering cases, which are incredibly stressful at times and incredibly hard work, but always rewarding.
As a fraud investigator and a keen golfer himself, Mike's two worlds are about to collide, and he gets straight to work on building a profile of his suspect. He discovers that club pro Stephen Hunter is a family man who's well known and trusted in the local community. And he's lucky enough to be earning a living from the sport he loves.
Stephen at that time had been working for the golf club for 27 years. He was the head professional, he was part of the furniture. He was well trusted by and well liked by the majority of the membership, as far as I'm aware, and the members of staff at the golf club.
To the outside world, Hunter had it all, but he wanted more, and his greed would ultimately end up costing him everything.
Being a professional golfer, Stephen Hunter was paid a retainer by the golf club, approximately £25,000 a year, to operate the pro shop selling golfing goods at the golf club. It was his business and he was able to take all profits from the shop. The only thing that he wasn't allowed to take was the green fee income. So whenever a guest or a visitor would come to the club, they would go into the pro shop, sign into the visitor's book, and then pay Stephen or their green fee, their money. At the end of the month, then Stephen would add up the number of visitors or the amount of money that he'd taken, and he would email the club how much that had been, and then at some point write a cheque to the club for that green fee income.
It's a standard arrangement at golf clubs up and down the country, and one that relies purely on trust. But a spot check by Hunter's boss sets alarm bells ringing.
The golf club manager was told how much Stephen had declared the income to be and thought it sounded a little bit low. So he went and checked the visitors book himself and saw that Stephen had only declared about a quarter of what the income should have been.
There are thousands of pounds missing, so the management calls Hunter in to explain. When questioned, he immediately blames the cash shortfall on an oversight by his accountant. He agrees to repay 2 years' worth of missing money and hopes that that's the end of the matter. But his now suspicious bosses decide to dig a little deeper.
The club manager and the chairman at the time then started to look at what had happened prior to September 2016 and started talking to Stephen about this. And it was at this point that they felt he was not being as cooperative as he could be. And they terminated his contract and contacted the police. And my investigation started from there.
Mike gets to work examining the evidence for himself, and what he discovers will send shockwaves through the leafy Hampshire suburb.
So these are some images of the visitors book, but obviously we've had to remove details of any individual's names, but date on one side, the guest or the visitor that was coming into the club, and then down this column here, a £25 guest fee paid for every single person.
It's instantly clear to Mike that there's a big difference between the numbers in the book and what Hunter's handing over at the end of the month.
So in that month, Stephen declared the income to be £1,025. The actual visitor's book, when all of these pages were added up, came to £3,336.
That's more than £2,000 of unaccounted for cash in just 1 month. But Hunter's been in charge of the green fee payments for years. So how far back has he been skimming off club money into his own account? Suspiciously, any records that date back before 2016 have disappeared from the club. Mike knows finding these books could be the key to uncovering the full extent of Hunter's fraud.
So I obtained a warrant from the court to search Mr. Hunter's home address at that time. And this was to look for any evidence relating to the offence, including any visitors' books that might be there.
But frustratingly, he comes away empty-handed.
Very little in terms of real evidence was found, and no visitors' books were found at the address.
This is a major setback. Mike now needs to find another way to prove how much of the golf club's cash Hunter has pocketed over the years.
I began looking at the credit card payments that were coming into the pro shop. The green fee income or the green fee sales were all whole pound values, so they were all £25, £30, £40, £50, etc. Whereas the vast majority of items that were sold in the shop were typical retail prices, £25.99, £1.50, £1.99, things like that. So fortunately, the credit card company were able to provide me with an itemised list of every single individual payment coming through. So I could look at that and pick out the £25 payments, the £30 payments, and say with a fair amount of confidence that that was a green fee payment.
When he adds the figures up, the true extent of the suspect's deceit is revealed. The trusted member of the local golfing community has dishonestly diverted a staggering £109,000 into his personal bank account. Later, more missing cash, and this time, it's being stolen from the public purse.
The more that I saw, the more determined I was to do a thorough job of the investigation and to see that the right outcome was reached at the end.
A According to recent figures, over 7 million families in the UK are currently claiming child benefit. For many parents, it's a financial lifeline that helps them feed and clothe their kids. But for the conman in our next case, it's a blank cheque that he just keeps on cashing.
This is the story of how a brazen fraudster from Manchester cheated the public purse out of an astronomical amount of taxpayers' money.
This case was serious organised crime at its worst and infiltrated the benefit systems to the greatest of degrees.
Caroline Jones is an investigator in the Department for Work and Pensions Serious and Organised Crime Unit.
We received information from HMRC to tell us that they had identified 2 phone numbers that were being repeatedly used to make claims to children's tax credits. How they identified this was that one member of staff recognised the voice from the mobile numbers that was being used, and then they started to look into the mobile numbers, and there was a pattern with this same voice, and there was hundreds of claims being made, but from the same phone numbers.
2 numbers, 1 voice, but new claims for child benefits and tax credits using countless different names. With suspicions aroused, a special operation is set up to investigate.
Our first steps were to look into the telephone numbers and track who they belonged to, and to get all the phone records from them. We could listen to the voice recordings, and we identified that the person that making these calls was Ali Bana Mohammed.
Ali Bana Mohammed is a married father of 2 from Hume in Manchester, who's already known to the authorities for drug-related offences. With a suspect in their sights, Caroline's team now need to figure out exactly how the scam works. She contacts the Department of Education to find out whether the children being claimed for are registered at school, and she calls the government's records office to check if their births have ever been registered. And what she discovers is her first major breakthrough. There's no trace of any of the children anywhere. So how is the suspect making claims for non-existent kids? Caroline's next move is to request copies of the birth certificates that were used to register the claims.
Once we had the birth certificates, we brought in a document expert from the Home Office who examined each of the birth certificates and was able to confirm to us that the details had been forged. I've actually got now a copy of a genuine application for a birth certificate, and what you can see here is that it's entry number 227 for certificate number 568. The surname is Banner, and the date of birth, the year was 2007. Underneath that, I have a copy of a fictitious birth certificate now. So you can see he's used the entry number 227 with the birth certificate ending in 568, but the surname has now changed to Utting, and the date of birth has also now changed to January 16.
Mohammed has been taking genuine birth certificates with authentic numbers, then forging multiple copies, simply changing the names and dates of birth. Now Caroline knows how the scam works. She discovers the full extent of the fraud, and it's astonishing.
From the evidence that we'd received, we were able to identify that 188 fictitious claims had been made to child benefit, and we identified a total of £345,000 in child benefit had been paid out fraudulently.
£345,000 of public money, meant for those that really need it. But incredibly, this is only the tip of the iceberg.
And we also identified that over 1.4 million in child tax credits had been paid out.
All told, Ali Bana Mohammed has defrauded the benefit system out of more than £1.7 million. And with claims still coming in, he needs stopping, and fast. Thanks to Caroline's investigation, the case against Mohammed is coming together when suddenly a call out of the blue hands her some unexpected evidence that could be exactly what she needs to prove his guilt beyond any doubt.
We were contacted by immigration officers because Ali Bana Mohammed was wanted in questioning for immigration offences, and they had actually got a warrant to search his property. And when they'd searched his property, they came across notebooks that were hidden in the back of a wardrobe under clothes that contained adults' names, date of births, national insurance numbers, children's names and account numbers.
This could be the smoking gun that Caroline needs, so her team start to follow the trail of money for every account listed in the notebooks.
And that all led us back to Ali Bana Mohammed.
After his arrest by immigration officers, Mohammed is released on bail. But rather than lying low after his brush with the law, incredibly, he's making even more bogus benefit claims. But to keep his scam running, the crooked conman needs more genuine birth certificates to alter. But Caroline and her team have worked out where he's sourcing his original copies from. Manchester Register Office.
So we then started working with the registry office to check their CCTV to see who it was that was actually going into the registry office to obtain these children's certificates.
Caroline now has the opportunity to catch Mohammed in the act. All she needs to do is wait for another birth certificate to be picked up. But when the all-important footage comes in, the man she sees isn't who she's expecting.
When we had a chance to examine the CCTV footage, it was very clear that it wasn't Ali Bana Mohammed. It was someone else that was part of this organised criminal group that was working with him, that was going in to obtain these birth certificates.
Mohammed isn't working alone. He's roped in friends and relatives to help him with his scam. In fact, officers identify 6 other accomplices in what turns out to be a carefully orchestrated crime ring. But then, the moment Caroline was waiting for, the man returns to the register office, and this time he's been joined by the criminal mastermind himself, Ali Bana Mohammed.
We knew we had enough evidence. We'd identified that it was the handwriting of Ali Bana Mohammed. We identified all the phone records. So on the day that we arrested Ali Bana Mohammed, we were able to contact our colleagues in HMRC, and with immediate effect, no more claims were accepted through. They were all intercepted and stopped.
When the case comes to trial, Mohammed's accomplices receive jail sentences totaling more than 13 years for their part in the meticulously planned scam. By now, Mohammed himself is already serving time in prison for drugs and immigration offences. But after pleading guilty to 29 further offences of fraud, the judge adds 3.5 more years to his sentence.
We were very satisfied that the judge added a substantial sentence onto the sentence that he was already serving. So we felt that justice had been served.
Fraud investigators are on the tail of a benefits cheat, believed to be pocketing thousands in disability benefits that he is not entitled to. The fraud squad have him under surveillance, and the show is almost over.
He claimed that he had a number of conditions. He said that he couldn't walk any great distance without pain, and also indicated that he did not like to mix with people.
Covert cameras have already caught the claimant shopping unaided in a local supermarket, leading Neil to believe there's truth in the allegations.
The footage disclosed the reality of this gentleman's mobility. They showed that he was able to move. His mobility was not restricted to the extent that he claimed.
The evidence is damning, but Neil knows that on its own, this won't be enough to prove the man is cheating the system.
Often we find claimants saying that they have good days and bad days. So we needed to get hard evidence over a period of time showing that this gentleman's mobility was far greater than he was claiming.
To build even more of a case against him, investigators turn to the internet. They trawl the claimant's social media, and what they discover leaves them all shook up.
The search revealed that this gentleman was performing as an Elvis impersonator, but he was actively promoting himself. He was putting himself out there as being available for events on a regular basis, and the evidence, the documentation showed that this had been going on for a significant period of time and throughout the period of his claim.
Amazed by what they've found, the surveillance team swings back into action. And what they see next leaves them in absolutely no doubt that the suspect's scamming the system.
So the surveillance showed this gentleman assisting moving heavy speakers, packing away his equipment and setting his equipment up.
This is a man who claims he suffers severe muscle pain when he walks and whose dodgy knees and ankles can give way without warning. And here he is, effortlessly lifting heavy speakers. But that's only the half of it. Neil is stunned by what he sees next.
Don't tell me I told you.
The allegedly disabled defendant taken to the stage as a fully fledged Elvis Presley impersonator. Even an experienced prosecutor like Neil can't believe his eyes, or his ears.
What was somewhat strange about this case is that his performance was a very public performance. It suggested that he had a blatant disregard to the fact that he was likely to be spotted performing in a very mobile way. They included going down on one knee and standing up in one fluid movement, and often concluding the routine on both knees on the dance floor.
And not content with wooing the crowd just once, the fleet-footed rock and roller is performing twice a night.
For any fully mobile individual, 2 one-hour sets would be fairly difficult and tiring. But for a gentleman who is said to have the mobility difficulties claimed, you would think that there would be some evidence of that in any of these routines.
It's quite the performance, and the team soon discover it's not for one night only. They catch him at it again, with a routine every bit as over the top. For his adoring public, it's a fun-packed show, but for Neil, it's nothing short of outrageous.
This was Shocking. This was a man who had the gall, the temerity, the audacity, if you like, to engage in a very public performance, a performance that was always likely to be seen possibly by an investigator, more importantly by somebody who had knowledge as to the details of his claim form and the benefits that he was being paid.
This is the most barefaced display of benefits fraud that Neil's ever seen. And as well as proving the suspect's far more mobile than he's making out, the footage also exposes yet another lie on his claim form.
He stated he does not like to mix socially, but the evidence from the footage and his performances show that he has a backing band quite willing to engage with members of the public and the audience, which again is totally contrary to the suggestion made in his benefit claims.
The total amount of cash the suspect has fraudulently pocketed, £33,000. With more than enough evidence to prove the claimant's cheating ways, it's now or never for the team, so they make their move.
The investigators went to his house and arrested him, and whilst there they found various items including stage costumes, various flyers, bookings and the like, documentation to support the fact that this man was working throughout the period of his benefit claim.
The curtain has come down on the swindling singer's antics. And when the case goes to court, Neil's evidence is so overwhelming, the Elvis impersonator finally comes clean.
Having pleaded guilty, the judge felt that a sentence of imprisonment was appropriate. He sentenced the gentleman to 20 weeks imprisonment, but on balance and upon reflection, he felt that that sentence could be suspended. In terms of the overpayment, this gentleman still has an ongoing liability to repay the full amount of just over £33,000.
It's a great result for Neil. He's stopped the brazen benefits cheat from stealing another penny from the public purse.
My view is that this money could have been better spent on hospital equipment, it could pay for a carer, it could go towards easing hospital delays, all of the issues that we as taxpayers suffer with and deal with, or going towards people who genuinely deserved it.
But the victory seems more than just stopping this crooning conman from playing the system. Neil knows that every successful conviction sends out an important message.
What I would say to any potential fraudsters is think again, because if you decide to put a false claim in, you will be found, you will be investigated, and ultimately you will be prosecuted.
In Hampshire, Detective Constable Mike Dumbleton is on the case of a professional golfer who's been stealing large amounts of cash from the club where he works. But, as Mike's about to discover, this crooked golfer's thefts don't end there.
As part of his role as the club pro, 54-year-old Stephen Hunter's responsible for signing in visitors and taking their cash, which he's then supposed to pass on to the club. But Hunter's only been declaring a small fraction of the takings, and he's been using the rest to fund a lavish lifestyle.
Stephen Hunter was living in a £1 million house in a rural area, driving nice cars, going to nice restaurants, things like that. Just on the mortgage and the vehicles, he was paying in excess of £4,000 a month, which seemed to outweigh what he was earning or what he was declaring to the HMRC. So immediately it raised concerns as to how he was affording to do this.
Hunter's already diverted a staggering £109,000 into his own account. But incredibly, Mike's about to uncover even more.
I was passed a box full of old checkbooks for Stephen's business by his accountants. I began to look at these. On the check stubs, you could see things that had been written on the check stubs that indicated a payment back to the golf club.
Mike contacts the bank to find out if the cheques have in fact been paid to the people or companies that are recorded on the stubs. And what he finds out is clear evidence of even more fraud.
There were 40 cheques that had been written out as if they'd been paid to the golf club, but in fact they'd actually gone to other accounts, including the vast majority being personal accounts of Stephen.
But it doesn't stop there.
There were a further 60 cheques that his accountants had dealt with as a payment back to the golf club, but in fact they'd actually been exchanged for cash at the golf club, so they weren't a payment to the golf club. It was another clear element of false accounting.
The total sum of money that Hunter's fraudulently funneled into his personal bank account is now known to be at least £193,000. This is theft on a massive scale, so to make sure he hasn't missed anything, Mike calls for backup.
We did employ a forensic accountant in the case. We needed a financial expert, somebody with greater expertise than I've got. They identified a further offence. Stephen was invoicing the club on a monthly basis. And on those invoices, he was including VAT. The problem with that was that the contract to run the pro shop for the golf club was a personal contract to him. It wasn't through his business.
By illegally adding an extra 20% to his invoice for VAT, he's conning HMRC out of £34,000. And it's all going straight into his back pocket. But as Mike's about to discover, that's just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to cheating the taxman.
The forensic accountant also raised another concern. The retainer payments weren't declared on his self-employed accounts. So he didn't pay any income tax or national insurance contributions for any of those retainer payments.
As well as stealing from his employer and illegally adding VAT to his invoices, by dodging income tax and national insurance, Hunter's robbed the public purse to the tune of £70,000. That's money that could be paying for vital public services. And if that wasn't bad enough, Mike's about to discover there really are no depths to which the crooked club pro won't sink.
The golf club manager raised to me that he had some concerns about two charity events that Stephen Hunter had organised at the golf club. These were a memorial event in aid of a long-standing member of the club who had passed away in 2014, and then in aid of a charity that was close to that member's heart, a charity called Canine Partners. So this is a brochure that was produced by the golf club with Stephen's assistance to advertise the Memorial Pro-Am event, and it makes a clear mention in aid of Canine Partners, amazing dogs transforming lives. And the rest of the leaflet is purely just shows the extent to which local businesses supported the days, all the advertising that they paid for.
It was a popular event, and club members and local businesses donated generously. But when the club checks to see how much money's been handed over, the sums simply don't add up.
They were surprised to hear when they made contact with the charity that they'd only received funds from a collection tin worth £47.75.
Mike now believes the cold-hearted conman has stooped so low, he's pocketing money that was meant for a local charity.
There was around £11,000 that was unaccounted for. When looking at the income and the expenses and the prize fund that Stephen was working with, I couldn't see where this $11,000 was going to.
But then, a breakthrough. Refusing to give in, Mike delves deeper into Hunter's personal accounts. And lo and behold, he uncovers the missing cash, all £11,000. It's a shameless act of theft, stealing funds that were destined to help people living with disabilities.
I have no idea what £11,000 or so would mean to this particular charity, but I assume it would mean an awful lot. Certainly more than £47.75.
Not only has Hunter starved a charity of much-needed funds, he's ripped off the people who are simply trying to do a good deed in memory of a cherished member of the club.
I spoke to a large number of people who supported those two events, and every single one of them said that they would be disappointed, to put it politely, had the charity not benefited to the degree that they should have done.
It's an outrageous act of greed, but when questioned about the stolen donation, the charity cheat shows no remorse.
In interview, Stephen stated that it was all about raising awareness of the charity rather than raising funds for them. Again, this didn't make sense with what the evidence that I had found. There were flyers saying without the help of local businesses and with the membership at the golf club, there would be no hope of raising funds for the charities.
It seems there's no end to the greedy golfer's fiddling ways. By not paying his tax, stealing from his employer, and callously cheating a local charity, Hunter's put over £225,000 of other people's money into his own pocket. So it's no surprise when his case comes to court that the judge throws the book at him. Hunter is sent to prison for 5 years, a sentence that Mike thinks he deserves.
I was very relieved with the result. It's just not fair, is it, somebody not paying the taxes that they should do when the rest of us work very hard for our living and pay our taxes. Everybody should do their bit.
Join us again when our investigators weed out even more shameless fraudsters.
Seeing somebody steal that amount of money makes me angry.
And help protect the public purse.
It's a clear message to other people that might be thinking of doing the same thing. All money has got to be paid back to the public purse.
If you do commit crime, we will be coming after you.
That's here same time tomorrow morning, or you can watch all episodes right now on iPlayer. Just press the red button, where you'll also find a film 4 years in the making. Matt Shea investigates the controversial world of Andrew Tate and asks, is he the man who groomed the world?